Welcome to Link Internationally, a multilingual podcast where we are learning internationally and networking the kingdom. There were more than 6.9 million international students in 2022, and that figure is constantly growing. I'm Anza, your host. I invite you to join me as I discover the inspiring physical and spiritual journeys of international students as they share their personal, life-changing experiences with us. These stories enable us to enlarge our vision of what God has been doing in and through international student migration around the world in order to make His name known among the nations. Today, I'm really happy to welcome Simran to the podcast. She's originally from Delhi in India and studied medicine in Yerevan, Armenia. Hi, Simran. It's so good to have you with us. Thanks for being here.
Hey, hi. I'm so happy and glad to be here with you, Anja. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
Thank you. So you grew up in Delhi in the north of India. And I think when people hear India, they sometimes imagine it as a one single culture, but it's actually incredibly diverse. I was actually chatting with an Indian family over lunch recently, and we were talking about just how different regions can be from each other. So I'd love to start there. What was your experience like growing up in Delhi? What was everyday life like for you? And maybe you could share a childhood memory that really captures your environment.
Yeah, so growing up in Delhi was actually quite diverse. Being the capital city, you're constantly around people from different states and background. So that really shapes how you see things early on. And I come from a family which is middle class. Both my parents are government employees, and my brother and I just had a 1 year gap. Our routine was pretty typical. It was school, then daycare when we were younger, and in high school, a lot of it shifted to tuitions and studies. My parents worked really hard to give us good education and all the opportunities we needed, and I really value that. I think it made me value emotional support deeply and lean more on closer relationships. So yeah, it was simple, a structured upbringing, but Delhi as a city gave me a lot of exposure and perspective growing up.
Thank you. So were there any festival or tradition that you especially loved?
Festivals, yeah, though I mean they were something I really enjoyed growing up, especially Diwali and Holi. Diwali, the festival of lights, is a big celebration, with cleaning and decorating homes with the diyas, exchanging gifts, and it marks one of Hindu gods' story of returning from exile and celebration of good over evil. And there's a whole story behind it. And of course, one other festival I really enjoyed was Holi, in which we play with vibrant colors, we eat good food, and families and friends gather together. So for me, basically the most meaningful part growing up wasn't so much worship rituals around those festivals, but the sense of togetherness, celebrating, meeting people, creating memories. And over time my personal beliefs have taken different direction, but this was the environment I was raised in.
And we can't talk about India without talking about food, of course. I remember when I lived in the UK, there were so many Indian restaurants. And I have to say, I loved sag, which is, I think, spinach. Although I'm not sure that it's from your region. I think it's from the north. What kind of food did you grow up eating? And are there dishes that from your area that you particularly love?
Oh, I'm a big foodie. Food is a big part of growing up in Delhi. It's because it's the capital city, you're exposed to a huge variety. Delhi is really rich in food, and you can find almost everything from all over the India in Delhi. So at home, it was mostly simple North Indian meals like roti, that is chapati, and lentils and different vegetables. But outside, especially in Old Delhi, towards north, you get rich dishes like chicken tikka, butter chicken, mutton curries, and the garlic naan is one of my favorite. So for me, it's a mix of simple home food and outside food, but very much tied to comfort and shared moment with friends and family.
So now, when it came to your studies, you chose medicine, which is no small thing. You first tried to study in India, but you ran into how competitive it can be. So, can you give us a bit of insight into that? What is it like trying to get into university in India, especially for something like medicine?
So yeah, it's extremely competitive here. There are very limited government seats, and only the top performers get in. Private colleges are an option, but they're very expensive, and I couldn't get through the entrance exam despite trying. One After one entrance exam, I got into a paramedical course though, but they rejected me on some of the other bases. And at one point, I was very close to giving up. So, but my mom really supported me through that phase and encouraged me to keep on going.
So then you made a pretty big decision, right? You applied to study in Armenia and you got accepted. How did that even come about? Is Armenia a common destination for Indian students?
I guess no, but as because I have not heard of Armenia before, my mom, who is a paramedic, met a doctor who had studied at Yerevan State Medical University, Yerevan, Armenia, and she guided us. So through her, we connected with the university's representative in India and followed the process. There are brochures and ads for countries like Armenia, Ukraine, and other and the Philippines and other countries who provides the course, but I trusted it more because it came from a real reliable person. So I think people who are into it have heard of it, but as somebody who has from the family who was the first person who was going out for studies, yeah, I never heard of Armenia before.
So, emotionally, what was that like for you? Were you more excited, or more nervous about leaving home and going to an unknown country?
Yes, definitely. It was a big step for my family and for me as well. I was the first girl in my family to go abroad to study. I have always been an average student. So, looking back, I feel it was more God's plan than just my ability. And it turned out to be a life changing decision for me.
Beautiful. So then you arrive in Armenia, totally new place, new culture. What was that experience like at the beginning? What were some of the highlights and maybe some of the challenges too?
Yeah, leaving home was emotional, but it was a completely new experience as well. New country, new culture, everything. In the beginning, it was a bit overwhelming, but I was living in a hostel and had Indian seniors around, which really helped actually. One of my seniors from Delhi, who was a couple of years ahead of me, especially guided me a lot in lot of settling in. Initially adjusting to everything, I mean, how the university worked, study schedules, food, laundry, even things like internet was a bit challenging. Cooking for myself and managing basic things took some time, and of course there was some homesicknesses too. But over time I settled in, found my rhythm, and honestly I grew to really love the place. It became a second home for me.
I'd love to shift a bit and talk about your spiritual journey. While you were in Armenia, were you still practicing Hinduism? And what did that look like for you in a different country?
Yeah, initially I continued practicing Hinduism in Armenia. It gave me a sense of closeness to home. My mother and brother had given me idols. So I set up a small sacred space in my room, similar to a temple at a home. Since I was living in a hostel with Indian batchmates and senior, it was easy to continue practicing. We had come as a group and stayed together, so the environment felt familiar. We celebrate both small and major Hindu festivals together in the hostel, even though it was a Christian country. The universities and hostel authorities were supportive and allowed us to practice our faith freely. And they also made accommodations for other religions also. For example, keeping kitchens open early for Muslims students during Ramadan or Iftar. Overall, it was quite comfortable to continue my faith because I was surrounded by fellow Indians.
And then you went through a really difficult season, you told me, which turned out to be a turning point for you. You moved, you met a new housemate, and she was a Christian. Before that, had you ever really interacted with Christians back in India? What did you think about Christianity at the time?
Back in India, my exposure to Christianity was limited. I didn't have close Christian friends growing up. or much exposure to it. I had visited a well known church once during Christmas in my childhood. And it was mainly out of curiosity for the decoration and atmosphere because it was Christmas time. I even owned a small Bible which they gave me at that time, and I've seen also a movie about Jesus, but it felt all more like a cultural thing or a symbolic thing rather than personal. Christianity to me at that point was just another religion in a diverse country like India, which where many beliefs coexist peacefully. So I didn't have any deeper understanding and personal connection or much deeper understanding of Christianity at that time.
And then something changed for you, Simran. Can you tell us that story, how Jesus became real to you and how you came to the decision to follow him?
So my life was fairly routine until my fourth year in Armenia when I went through a very difficult phase. And during that time, I met a senior who noticed my condition, who was also my roommate. And she invited me to a small group where people shared openly, prayed, and spent time together. I joined mainly because I was lonely and needed connection at that time. And at first, I didn't speak much there, but I was struck how vulnerable and supportive everyone was. And then later, also, she took me to the church in Yerevan, the church called Yerevan International Church. The experience was overwhelming in a positive way. I also spoke there with church elders about my struggles because she said that you can, share your hardships with them. And I was like, probably I'll get some practical advices, but they all talked about just God's love to me. And at that time, I didn't fully accept what she said and what they all said because I was looking for more practical answers, but I couldn't ignore the love and care I experienced. And the shift started from there. After my first church experience, I kept on returning to the home group, church gatherings, community events. The people there accepted me as I was without judgment, and that drew me in. Later, I joined also Alpha course where we explored questions about life and faith. In a small group discussions, I felt safe expressing my thoughts. Even though I come from a different background, I built close friendships, especially with an Iranian couple who supported me deeply. And over time, through relationships, discussion, and observing how people lived out their faith, I began to understand the love of Jesus in a real way. However, I struggle with the implications, especially the idea of letting go of my previous beliefs and how it would affect my family, parents, people back at home. But eventually, during a period of intense worship and renewal at church, I reached a point of conviction. I felt a strong inner pull and decided to fully commit to Jesus. That was when I chose to leave behind my older practices and follow Jesus wholeheartedly. And that was the day also when I broke all the idols back at home, like back at hostel. I broke all of them, and I just accepted Jesus wholeheartedly. And later that year, I was baptized on my birthday in February, surrounded by people who supported me through my journey. And it remains one of the most meaningful moments of my life.
So eventually, Simran, you went back to India, your country, to continue your studies and career. So what was it like going back home after everything you experienced? Did you feel any kind of reverse culture shock?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in Armenia, there was a supportive team around me who prepared all of us graduates who were transitioning back home to prepare our minds. And we were in this course called Think Home, and where our leader used to drop in questions so that we can ponder upon them and can say proper goodbyes to the places that we loved in Armenia. It was extremely difficult because saying goodbyes to the places you were part of last 6 years, and those 6 years, especially when they are your formative years, it was extremely difficult. And of course, coming back home after all of the support that we've got in Armenia was little challenging. But somehow I got prepared in my mind that I'm not going alone and Jesus is with me. because ultimately he will take care of me how he has taken care of me while I came to Armenia. So he will be with me when I will be back home. But yeah, it was
Yeah,
challenging, quite challenging. Transitions are really hard.
I imagine. And how did your faith play into that season? What helped you and what was challenging specifically?
Yeah, so one of the major challenges when I came back was my parents decided to have this huge function for me as a celebration for me completing my degree and returning back successfully. So they wanted to keep this big worship Hindu night where they will put big idols and worship them. And I started praying around it because I never wanted that and I never wanted to worship any idols. And that also led me to share my faith journey and my testimony to my parents. Initially, they listened patiently, but because for Hindu people, it's just accommodating another god. So they were like, "There's no big deal in it, but why are you refusing to follow our tradition and our worship? You can do that as well." And I was like, "It does not work like that." So I actually shared my testimony with them. Holy Spirit led me to share my testimony, and then also tell them that I will not be able to do what you want me to do, but I will still be your daughter, I will still be your child, so I will be present there for you if you still want to continue this and celebrate, but I will not be worshipping the idols the way you'll be worshipping. It was a huge chaos in my family. My parents and my brother felt disrespected, but I just stood to my grounds, and the people back in Armenia, my elders and my friends, fellow believers, supported me in prayers. So that was the biggest challenge while I was back at home.
So, since then, Simran, how have you been nurturing your faith? What have been some of the joys and maybe difficulties of living it out in your context, which is mainly Hindu context?
Yeah, I went back from a support of full blown Christian community to coming back to a family of non-believers. So that was quite difficult for me because I had no community back here, and that was quite challenging. And as soon as we come back, we have to start preparing for a screening exam here in India for foreign medical graduate students. So I got into that, and it was extremely difficult for me without having the support of my community, because I remember when I was preparing for my final exams in 6th year, there were people who used to there were very so many people who used to support me and come to check on me, and it was very very helpful. And then coming back to home to the exam, to preparing to the for this exam was challenging, but what kept me going was my faith and my closeness to God. I used to read the scripture and kept on meditating it, and that's how I just, cleared the exam in my second attempt and not my first, because with all the transition that I had gone through, was difficult. But God just changed my heart and changed me, that it's not about the people, and you can be in different situation and in different circumstances, but it's me who you have to draw your strength from. So in that transition period was about me and Jesus, and just me and Jesus. So, and keeping my
Mm.
eyes and face towards him only.
So you told us that you've been nurturing your faith through the Bible, through fixing your eyes on Jesus. What have been some of the joys and maybe also difficulties of living it out in your context, which is mainly a Hindu context?
Yeah, because I've been surrounded majorly by Hindu parents, and my close dear friends, school friends, in fact, are unbelievers. Some of them are atheists, so they didn't understand fully the context of my testimony. And because India is a country of different faiths and different beliefs, so they have their own mindset about it. But I slowly realized that it's not me who's going to explain them, and it's just my my individual journey with God and their individual journey with God. I'm I praise God for the community that He gave me here also. I became a part of a church here, but I go enough that everybody knows me, but it's a little far from my place. God is yet teaching me another lesson and taking me in another journey of maturity.
Thank you so much, Simran, for sharing your story with us today. It's been really special having you on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Anja, for having me on the podcast. You have been an amazing host.
Thank you so much for listening. If Simran's story resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. Because next week, we're heading to France with Sergio, a student from Colombia, navigating life, studies and faith, far from home. Then the week after, we'll travel north to Finland to hear Anya's story, her journey from Russia and the unexpected ways her experience shaped her. We'll release new episodes every Monday, in English on the first and third Mondays, in French on the second and fourth Mondays, and if there's a fifth Monday, you'll hear an episode in Spanish or Portuguese. Stay tuned!